Okay guys, welcome back. Time to show you my Super Nintendo collection. So let's get started. First I'm going to show you some of the box ones I have, starting with this oversized one. Mario Paint. This also includes the special mouse that you'll need to use for this particular game. Not to mention the mouse pad. Arrow the Acrobat 2. Dig and Spike Volleyball. This one doesn't have the original manual. See, where do I... Oh, here we go. Final Fantasy 3. This one's also missing the original manual, unfortunately. Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. This is sort of like a beginner's Final Fantasy in some ways, or a Final Fantasy for beginners. Just checking something. Hold on, folks. Home Alone. I'm just checking to see if this has the manual, but it doesn't. Couldn't remember if it does or doesn't. Get a little ahead. Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Pretty good Zelda game. NBA Live 95. NBA Showdown. NCAA Final Four Basketball. I believe the Final Four this year is winding down. Of course, this game doesn't have the original manual, but does have the original box, though. I have a few of these boxes that doesn't have the manual. Whenever it doesn't have the manual, I'll just point out. Pac-Man 2: The New Adventures. Down there it states that it's an interactive cartoon. Does have unlockable versions of the original arcade. Of course, you can also use a special code to play those arcade games, so you'll have to hunt down for certain things to unlock them. Race driving. Let me look at something. Let me see if this has the original manual. Yeah, I think it does. SimCity. This is actually a reissue because it has an E rating. When this first came out, the ESRB wasn't formed back then, so it wasn't rated. But when it got reissued, it does have an ESRB rating. Street Fighter 2. I think this might be a reprint because it does have a black and white manual. I think originally it had a color manual. I don't know. Super Castlevania 4. Pretty awesome Castlevania game. one of my favorites on the Super Nintendo. This doesn't have the manual, however. Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. This was also got remade in some ways as Yoshi's Island DS. As well as a little game called Yoshi Touch and Go, which is actually somewhat different, but still same style gameplay. WWF Super WrestleMania. Used to have the cartridge only of this, but now I got it with the original box, and I think a better looking cartridge. The old cartridge was like all messed up. Okay, it does have the original manual. I'm just checking to see if it is. And the last box game I got, Zoop. Pretty average puzzle game to say the least. Tetris, it ain't. Okay, now let's get on with the cartridge-only games. Let's get this box over in my lap here. Easily get them out. This is not really a game, but actually an accessory of some sorts that's in a form of a cartridge. This is the Super Game Boy, where you play Game Boy games on a big TV. The same idea will be revived later as the Game Boy Player add-on for the GameCube. Unfortunately, you can't play Game Boy Color games on there. It'll display a message that says it's only playable on Game Boy Color or something like that. The Adventures of Mighty Max. The first Arrow the Acrobat with some writing on it says Take One Video. Now, here's something really funny about the back of the cartridge. Note the Be Kind Please Rewind stickers. I mean, how can you rewind a game? That's kind of strange. Aladdin. Donkey Kong Country. Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Conquest. This is the Player's Choice reissue. If like 1 million copies of this were sold, then Nintendo will repackage it as a Player's Choice title. They will do the same thing with the N64 and the GameCube, as well as the Game Boy Advance. Not to mention the original Game Boy. But for some reason they didn't do it on the Wii or DS as far as I know. Okay, this is Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. This completes the Donkey Kong Country trilogy. F-Zero. Final Fantasy II, aka Final Fantasy IV. And I almost forgot to mention Final Fantasy III was actually Final Fantasy VI. Now, for some weird reason, I think the battery in this cartridge right here, and I think Final Fantasy III has the same problem, doesn't work well. I mean, the save will, like, delete on its own, like the first save block of it or something. Oh well. This is Hyper V-Ball. Illusion of Gaia. Kirby's Avalanche. Now this is actually a this actually uses the same engine as the Puyo Puyo puzzle games. Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine on the Genesis also uses that particular engine. Mario is Missing. Mario's Time Machine. NHL PA Hockey 93. I also got the original instruction manual, as well as the original poster. I think it's a poster. Or a mini poster, I don't know what it is. Oh, and I almost forgot to show you the original instruction manual for the Super Game Boy accessory, as I showed you earlier. Alright, moving on, we've got Olympic Summer Games. I think, like I said in the Genesis video, this is actually based off the Atlanta 96 Olympic Games. Roadrunners Death Valley Rally. Star Fox. It's actually the first game that uses the Super FX chip. As you can see on the bottom of the cartridge, there's like 2 extra teeth on each side. It was pretty innovative at the time. Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Stunt Race FX is also a Super FX chip game. I also got the original manual. Super Mario All-Stars. Which I also got the manual of. Super Mario Kart. Super Mario RPG, Legend of the Seven Stars. Another great Super Nintendo game. I remember borrowing it off a friend many years ago. Pretty fun. Super Mario World. It's actually the original pack-in to the Super Nintendo. And I also got the original manual. Super Metroid. Another one of my favorites on Super Nintendo. I also got the original manual. Used to have the original box long time ago, but sadly it got misplaced. Unfortunately. Wario's Woods. I think it might be a reissue because it has the E rating. I think it once had a KA rating when it first came out. WWF Raw. Okay, that does it for the Super Nintendo games. Thank you so much for watching. Coming up next, we're going to show you the very few games I got for the ill-fated Sega Genesis add-on, the Sega CD.